What is going on, guys? I am back with another review of a day at an amusement park, and today I will be talking about this day I just had at Knoebels for the 2025 family reunion. And so anyways, let's just get started. So when I first got to the park, I met up with the family at a campsite that they were camping at and hung out with them for a little bit. And then after that time period came the boat race, and the, the let me I'm sorry, guys. So after we hung around the campsite for a little bit, we headed to no. Stop. So after that little bit of hanging out at the campsite, we headed over to watch the boat race that my family does at the reunion, where some people make like boats and then they race them down the river. And then after that so then after the boat race after the boat race, I headed to get my ride all day pass, and then after I got my ride all day pass, I headed to Phoenix, and then after Phoenix, I headed over to Rocco Plain, and then after Rocco Plain, I headed to Downdraft. Shout out Lily once again, and then after Downdraft, I headed over to, I think, Stratosphere at that point. And then after Stratosphere, I headed over to Twister, I think it was. Yeah. And then after Twister, I headed over to Flyer, I think it was. And then by the way, at Twister, shout out Jahida. She's a ride op she's a ride op who's starting to become cool with me. And then after that, I headed to Flyer, and then after that, I headed to Flying Turns, and then after Flying Turns, I think that's might have been when I headed over to wait, I rode Teacups after Flying Turn. I rode Teacups after Flying Turns, and then after Teacups, I headed over to Paratrooper, where this ride op named Rich, as I was in the process of baring my feet, he was like, "Why do you gotta take your shoes off?" And then when I sat down in my seat, he was like, "That makes no sense." And so shout out Rich. And yeah, so anyways, after Paratrooper, I headed over to Rotojets. And then after Rotojets, I headed over to Cosmotron. And then after Cosmotron, I headed over to Grand Carousel. Wait, I ate at the Round Stand at one point to try the Flamin' Hot Cheeto traveling taco. It was really good. And then so anyways, after Cosmotron, I headed over to Grand Carousel. And then after Grand Carousel, I headed over to Italian Trapeze. And then after Italian Trapeze, I headed over to Satellite. And then after Satellite, I headed over to Scooters. And then after Scooters, I did Scenic Skyway. And after Scenic Skyway, I headed over to Sklooge at that point. And then after Sklooge, I headed over to Pioneer Train. And then after Pioneer Train, I think I got another ride-in on Twister. And then after Twister, I headed over to Stratosphere, I think it was, yeah. And then after Stratosphere, I headed to Tornado. And then after Tornado, I headed over to Downdraft. And then after Downdraft, I think I got another re-ride-in on Rocco Plain. And then after Rocco Plain, I got another ride-in on Phoenix. And then after Phoenix, I got a ride-in on Giant Flume. Shout out William at Giant Flume once again. And then after that, I headed over to Black Diamond. And then after Black Diamond, I got another re-ride on Phoenix, and then after that re-ride on Phoenix, I started waiting around a little bit with some of my family members because we all had a group ride on Phoenix at like 6:30. So we were waiting around for that, and then we got the picture, and then we had the group ride on Phoenix, and then after so during the group ride on Phoenix, I got the front row, and so anyways, it was a good front seat ride on Phoenix, and so anyways, after Phoenix, I headed over to after the group ride on Phoenix. What did I do? Almost forgot to mention that I did anti-cars before one of my rides on Phoenix before the group ride we had on it. And so, yeah, I did that at one point. And so, anyways, let's just get talking about the rest of the day. So, after the group ride on Phoenix, I headed over to Flying Turns for a re-ride on that, which I don't normally do re-rides on Flying Turns, but I saw some of my cousins nearby it, and then one of them was like, "You going on Flying Turns, Gabriel?" And I was like, "Might as well." So I did a re-ride on Flying Turns, and I didn't really mind doing a re-ride on it because I really love Flying Turns anyways. And so anyway, after Flying Turns, I headed over to, I think, a re-ride on Paratrooper, I think it was. And then after Paratrooper, I headed over to a re-ride on Grand Carousel. And then after Grand Carousel, I headed over to I headed for a re-ride on Italian Trapeze. And then after Italian Trapeze, I headed to Impulse for a ride on that. And then after Impulse, I headed over to I think I might have headed back to I think I might have headed back over to Twister for wait. Okay. So let me think. I headed over to Stratosphere first. Headed to Stratosphere for an evening ride on that. And then after that, I headed over for a re-ride for 2 more rides on Twister, and then after that, I headed for another evening ride on Stratosphere, and then after that, I headed for a night ride on Downdraft, and then after that night ride on Downdraft, I headed over for a night ride on Phoenix. And then after that night ride on Phoenix, I got 2 more night rides on Twister and even got La Rotnaut. And so after I got La Rotnaut, I headed back up to the campsite to meet up with the rest of the family, and that pretty much concluded my visit at Knoebels. So this wraps up for this review of the day of visit number 9 to my favorite Pennsylvania amusement park, Knoebels Amusement Resort. Make sure to reply to me your thoughts on this video, and make sure to stay tuned for more coming soon here to Coaster Plus Music 19. And make sure to go check out my merch store on Bonfire. I'll have a link in the description. I sell t-shirts like this one I'm wearing. This one I'm wearing right here. That says, if the doctor doesn't order relaxation time after work, he orders a trip to Knoebels. So if you want this new shirt that I just released, the link will be in the description for the merch store in general. So, and I also sell drawstring bags, like face masks, all the things. So make sure to go check out my merch store. I'll have a link in the description, and make sure to subscribe if you are new, and turn on post notifications so you will not miss when I upload a new video. And I will see you in the next. Oh, and by the way, one of the times I rode Stratosphere today, I got a back-to-back re-ride or 2. I'm not sure, but one of those times I rode Stratosphere, I got 2 back-to-back re-rides right after, I think. And yeah.